here's the question, what strategy then should the different players adopt to develop industry competitiveness? We're lucky. We have some excellent panelists. Mrs. Delphine de Chesmarte, Deputy Director General, AFG. She's coming up here. She's going to be seated. Thierry Gaudsognan, Managing Director, CEO, Business Finance Services. Music too. Angel Martinez Aldama, President of the Inverco. Welcome. Then Mr. Marcus Mecklenburg, Director, Head of Legal, BVI. Please be seated. And François Messier, General Manager of VIP Councils. Please be seated. And then is Pierre Monteillard, partner for Frame, for financial institutions. Thanks. Please be seated. Thank you. Let's move on. Mrs. de Chesmartin. We talked about competitiveness and asset management. They have no secret for you. What is the position of different players with respect to possible ban on incentives? And how do you view all the challenges related to competitiveness? If you allow me, I'd like to step back. With respect to our discussions today, they're extremely interesting. These exchanges are very rich. I'd like to step back and talk about competitiveness. I believe that this element is increasingly present in discussions, and this is good because competitiveness is critical. At present, we have several initiatives on in Europe. I'm speaking of the report, which is expected by Mario Draghi, mandated by the European Commission on competitiveness of the financial industry. Also, another initiative from the Council of Europe with a report from Enrico Coletta about the single market economy in Europe and the aspects of competition. All this is important because today, in fact, we can make a dramatic observation in Europe. It's dramatic. We have some figures. In 10 years, approximately, we've lost a lot of market shares. Let's look at the big players in asset management in Europe. We moved from a share market, which was about 23% about 15 years ago, and today it's only about 15%. Not only have we dropped in terms of market shares globally, but also in the European market itself. And this is a real problem today. We're lucky in Europe because we have six big asset management, 4 in France, and they compete with international players. But all this is still fragile. So it's important to raise a question about competitiveness in the financial industry because, as our friend said, a competitive financial market is one which can finance the economy and bring us the strategic autonomy we need. If we don't have a good financial industry, we'll depend on international player to finance our economy, our industries, our innovation, and this is a problem. So I simply wanted to raise this point. There's another point I'd like to mention is this. In all regulatory aspects, well, we see changes. There are changes requested by the Council of Europe and the Commission. We raise a question about financial stability, about protection of savings, and there's also the question of competitiveness of our industries. Each regulation must evaluate the impact of competitiveness of the different players in our industries. This hasn't been done so far. And, of course, there's another question, the impact on the sustainability of our financial economy. Why is this important, this competitiveness issue? Because when we look at the ERIS project, we see lots of good things in the ERIS project, and their individuals play a role here. Everybody does, but we can get funds this way. But we have to look at this more globally. What are we investing in? Will they really invest in products will finance the European economy? That's one point. And then there's another question. You talked about debt retrocession, but the distribution model of the Commission, that is the dominant one in Europe. There's a risk here to make the dominant model fragile for a benefit which we don't even see. And we've seen where this ban was set up in the Netherlands, for example, and we didn't observe there an inflow of capital. In fact, there was a strong increase in distribution toward crypto assets. And I don't think they can finance the European economy. I just want to raise this point. I think it's essential in our discussions, and I'm delighted today for Europe. I'm delighted that we are becoming aware of this. Thank you very much. Next.
Now turning to Markus Mecklenburg, Director, Head of Legal BVI, representing the industry, the German industry in this sector of funds, representing for 4 trillion euros.
Markus Mecklenburg, thank you to be with us. We are starting with the Commission's proposal of value for money. How can we achieve value for money in the interest of investors? Because everything depends from the point of view, but of course it's very important to take into account the point of view of investors.
Yes, thank you, Fabienne. First of all, I would like to, highlight or point out that this aspect of competitiveness is really missing in the discussion so far. So I'm really grateful for the organizers to bring up this subject matter, because this is definitely an important aspect of all this discussion. This overall initiative, Retail Investment Strategy, has started as a measure to enhance or improve retail participation in the capital markets, to enhance the investor protection, which are all pretty important goals. But this cannot be seen detached from the aspect of competitiveness. As to the value for money debate, I think many aspects have already been raised today. The approach coming from the Commission, in our perspective, is not suitable to achieve this goal from neither aspect. I just learned yesterday that the Finnish competition authority raised a very important point when it comes to the use of benchmarks, which is the integral part of this value for money ideas coming from the Commission, who pointed out very clearly that benchmarks cannot be the right way to enhance value for money, because the most important effect of a benchmark is price convergence. So what a benchmark can achieve is that the prices will move together, but to the detriment of competition. And this is one victim of the idea which is on the table, and the others have already been raised earlier this morning. This fixation on the pricing aspect doesn't do the complexity of the issue any good. So for the time being, value for money is certainly a very legitimate goal to achieve, but the proposals that are currently on the table do not do this any good so far.
Très intéressant. Monsieur Thierry Gord.
Very interesting. Thierry Gordunion, Managing Director, CEO Business Development, AM Finance Services. Do you think we can benchmark everything? Well, in the current situation, we are doing cost benchmarks based on comparable risk in terms of performances. So my question is, can we benchmark everything? Well, actually, as this was said in the previous roundtable, well, we're going to take an example. For instance, if you want to benchmark European asset funds, well, indeed, there can be gross and gross value, gross strategy and value strategy. But there are other things. For instance, micro-cap funds. How is it possible to benchmark micro-cap funds? Is it about a distinct benchmark, or are you going to do benchmark with other European benchmark funds? Well, this seems to be tricky. So in my view, I have questions, therefore. Namely, in France, in Europe, we have competencies and expertises in terms of financial innovations. So one of the collateral effects of this directive may be to impede this financial innovation. Because if you present funds of which the cost is different from the benchmark, then you will have to justify this additional costs. And if you can't manage to do so, well, the fund is not going to be approved and it's not going to be marketable, this fund is not going to be marketable. So if you're the manager of a fund that is more complex, something different from niche products, actually that are niche products, well, it's going to be more complex, and I know what I'm talking about. And if it's a bit more complex, then it's going to impede our French and European competencies in terms of financial innovations. Now, another question, what should we put into the benchmarks? Well, we refer to performances, to risks. Well, is this enough? Well, actually, in my career history, I worked in companies working on the tax funds, and the question is, are you going to mix these funds with other funds that have no tax, with tax advantages? And for those investing in tax investments advantages, well, it's good for those who will subscribe. But the question is it going to be taken into account or not? Well, this has to be clarified. We also referred to, we also mentioned ESG. So as for the impact, it's even worse. It's not financial at all. It's actually extra financial. So how are you going to measure? How are you going to take into account the impact within benchmarks? Well, I don't know. So my fear, my concern, and we know what we're talking about, is that in France, there are 700 management companies with entrepreneurship management companies who have a know-how around the strategies based on expertise with specific know-hows. So as for these entrepreneurship management companies who have revenue to protect and so on and so forth, if you add difficulties to them, issues to them, problems to them, with new procedures, new processes, and so on and so forth to justify the cost, and for which marketing funds is even more complex, then I have to say that I'm very, very concerned. My question is, I'm wondering whether these people are still going to be existing in situation, still going to be developed in this situation. Are they going to be able to merge? Is it about them? Is it better for them to merge with other companies? Well, this is applicable to France, but also to Europe. Another thing that I would like to say now, well, indeed, we discussed this during the presentation earlier this morning. Morningstar presentation, and the question is which is the product for which the cost is the most justifiable, that can be the most justified. Actually, it's the ETF. It's ETF, namely passive management. However, who are the managers of the main managers of ETF? Actually, Anglo-Saxon people, Anglo-Saxon entities. Now, the paradox is that we have a European directive which is designed for retail clients in Europe that aims to target his or her savings towards a European market. But in the current situation, the management companies wouldn't be the European ones. Well, it seems to be a paradox, and I think that we have to review things with the regulators.
Monsieur Angel Martinez Aldama, je ne sais plus si je peux parler français ou anglais.
Mr. Angel Martinez Aldama.
Thank you to be here. Welcome. You are president of Inverco. A lot has been said already. I would sum up my question. Do you think that, in your opinion, risk can be a game changer?
Bonjour, merci pour
français ou anglais alors?
Non, l'anglais. Just for introduction. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour pour l'invitation. Yes, I'm going to speak in English. Sorry for that, but it's the language I am more used for business. Well, risks have positive aspects. I think that we have criticized during the morning, and I share many of those criticisms. Risks, but have very, very positive aspects in terms of digitalization, in terms of increasing advisors' knowledge or increasing financial education. I think this is a point we have not spoken about. I think it's quite important for the future of investors. But however, the facts are that the costs are clearly decreasing. The ESMA has, at the recent report, pointed out about that question, that sometimes we forget that this industry is very, very competitive, and the costs are scaling down clearly. And another fact is that the European investors, the EU, with the exception of the Dutch investors, have the freedom to choose the model they want to be offered, a fee-based model or commission fee-based. So I think that we have to preserve this freedom. Why? 96% of the EU population should we deprive from this freedom? This is a question that we cannot understand. And as another question in the risk says that, and we share that only 17% of the EU households participate in the financial markets. Of course, that's a reality against more than 60–70% in the US. But the conclusion of the risk says that this is because the products are very costly, and also because the advisors buy at the clients. I think this is a wrong consequences, a wrong perception, because if the US household participate more in the market, is because two of the services more important, the healthcare and the pension services, are provided by the private companies, and that implies that every month a lot of money is feeding the market. So I think we have a different model that we respect, of course, but we cannot change the reality. We have to see, for example, the Dutch workers, that 95% is covered by a pension fund. So the reality is not because the products are higher or because the advisors are buying the clients. This is because the model of the society, on the model we offer the products, the healthcare and the finance and the savings are clearly directed by the states. So one says that the consequences has been said clearly. If fortunately this proposal looks like it's not going to be approved, so thanks God. And we hope that the next commissioner, the next parliament, should debate more with the industry, should debate more on the principles, should debate more on the competition of the industry that have been said here. And we cannot change our model of services or not only for the asset management industry, but also for the distribution industry. We cannot change every 5 years. We have just recently adapted to MiFID II, and in MiFID II, if you offer third-party products, you could be charged retrocessions because that added value to the client. And now, only 5 years later on, and a lot of money invested by distributors and by asset management companies does not make sense. Anyone understand this? If we are trying to get some long-term goals that we have as Europeans, the ESG transition, long-term final investments, we cannot change the legislation every 5 years because the money is needed from the private sector, and the budget, public budgets clearly are quite low. So please hear the industry, and we have to work together. We have to do, because we are in the same boat. And the consequences, if we don't do that, has been clearly mentioned: less competitiveness, the danger of disappearing small companies, and finally not covering the goals we have to achieve.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Pierre.
Thank you very much. Pierre Montillard, I'm turning to you. You're associate at Frame. So in your view, what are the impacts on distribution in the current situation, the existing situation, at the moment it is about regulation, public affairs, and so on and so forth. There are many questions that come up. And now, what about execution, the operational execution to come, and so on and so forth? What is your view on that? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So in our cabinet, indeed, we have made a study on operational impact. Well, we are not done yet, but we can think that we can say so far that it's it's about 80-20 as for the most of the many impacts really. So the general message for us for this project, I can say that it's a huge project with many operational impacts as for not only for the management companies and also the distributors, and especially for the distributors. And also, I'd like to catch your attention on two aspects. First, this is a project with many impacts, with a huge amount of impacts as for compliance, IT reporting, many things that are very tough to make, to do. This involves a huge budget as well. And also, and mainly, in the end of the day, as seen by the distributors, the exercise of their specialty, their expertise is going to be reviewed in depth, deeply, with a level of requirements that will be higher. Advice, transaction are going to be more complex to perform in the future than in the near future than it is today. And from this point of view, I think that there's a challenge for the management companies, especially when it comes to them supporting their distributor clients much more than what they're doing now, as for offering solutions to their clients. And here, there's an opportunity for them to be useful, not only on this subject, with for the distributors, because there's a wide range of options. So I would like to enlist the main impacts for the distributors. It's going to change their lives as for their operations. First, an increase of demands, of requirements as for providing an advice. Three different concepts that are not, and we think that these are related to photo finish, namely the challenge to diversify clients. I think that as for today, when you look into amendments, the different positions, nobody or very few people would contest the fact that this progress is useful. So in other words, indeed, diversifying the client means for the distributors that will have to work based on stocks instead of flows, although many people still work on flows, will also have to approach things globally, overall, not only on finance but also on cash. Also, it's going to be required. We'll have to generate investment recommendations and not only product pushes. And as for benchmarks, in our cabinet, in our offices, the rate of allocation proposals is very low. It's about 50% of proposals made in retail markets. But in the future, it's not going to be possible to do so. We'll have to do things more generally. And it's the same when it comes to sustainability, to have our clients tackle this matter related to sustainability without the pattern allocations, model allocations. It's going to be impossible. So that's why it's a revolution. Switching to stocks, dealing with model allocations, it's huge. It's going to be huge. This is a first field of impact which is high. Another thing, namely requirements related to model allocations. It's about the interest, the client's interest, the capacity to have him approaching things in a wider way, and also allocations. So these increase in requirements related to advice, you can have that. You can see this. This is very visible also on the internet. because things is very shocking, so to speak. It's a true shock. It's something which is going to be an upheaval. Providing advice with all these requirements in full autonomy as for to clients, to distributors. It's going to be really, really complex, really tough. And also we will see that the use rates of self-care is going to be very low. And another impact, there's the reinforcement, the strengthening of the regulatory control. So as for ERT, the profile, the risk profile for clients, the capacity to undergo losses in ERTO, well, all that will be integrated into the process. But also we have to calculate things when it comes to free management. And this is going to be very costly. It's going to push the distributors to enrich and supported management. It's about 25%, so this means that about 2/3 of the market is going to suffer from providing performances as for a free management. This is going to be really tough for those holding accounts, for the insurers, and so on. So all these challenges, all these issues, and also another comment I'd like to make: if there is a partial ban as for advice, from an operational point of view and not economic, operational point of view, it's going to be a full nightmare. So these impacts are very high. We're quite sure that all this is going to happen, and this is a true opportunity for the management of companies, a real need for the distributors, but also an opportunity for the management companies to support these needs from the distributors' clients. Thank you very much. François Mézières, your General Director at VIP Conseil. As for the products that you distribute, I have the feeling when I prepare things with you, you say that it's already under the coding levels of the RIS. What do you mean? The former speaker said that, it's going to be tough. There's a lot of things to deal with. First of all, the regulatory issues. And when there are many things to do, when there are a huge amount of things that have to be done, there are also huge obligations, things that are mandatory, and at the same time, more little money in order to help the clients, to provide our clients with the required tools to be able to perform a follow-up. So when I said earlier that, we do distribution through life insurance platforms and so on and so forth, I can say that the management companies most of them have been challenged by the insurers, the insurance companies. Most of them, especially those who are above 33%, an average of 33%, and I heard also that this is a problem for the niche funds, and I totally agree with you. But, and this was said by the previous speakers as well, but there's also another option, namely, if we can demonstrate that management results in performances compared to the average, well, then this can be kept. But the people from the insurances don't like to mix with this. They say, well, okay, when it's above 33%, we want to remove it because it's very difficult to justify. Well, anyway, actually, we're at the very end of the distribution chain, because you will have decreased the cost. The insurers, the insurance people will have enlisted you and so on. So for all the industry, it will be less money. But anyway, the ultimate risk is a risk of end of retro. And end of retro is the end of the world for us. because we can be told, well, you can, then the clients will pay more and for your services and so on. Fine, we've seen what happened in England. Actually, it's not really what things unfold. So actually, it's not really a problem for us, but it's more a problem for our final clients. And actually, this is exactly what happened in England. Because they removed things as for the reach rows, fine. The biggest clients were supported, but not the smaller clients. So the smaller clients went on the internet, invested in crypto assets, for instance, or ETF held by, well, I'm just repeating what was said, ETF held by Anglo-Saxon companies, mainly. So you need the objective is indeed for the clients not to pay too much, but it's not only about price. With the price, there's also advice. And this is applicable to all the sectors, to all the industries. So in the end of the day, eventually what we found out is that actually things are indeed better than what they could have been. And we'll see in 3 years' time if indeed the regulator consider that the insurance companies or the management companies have sufficiently decreased the costs. And the worst-case scenario would be that the end of the rich rows for the distributors. Thank you very much. I'm turning to you again, Delphine de Chaise-Martin. We're lucky enough to have the representative of the AFG, and we had the vice president of AFG. And I would like to say that very clearly. With the RIS, is it not going to be against our interests? Well, I think that this is definitely what we said, although I'm not going to be that definite. Actually, we're investing and we're supporting our retail investors, and this is unavoidable. This is also a subject. This is also an issue, Tanguy told me. Also, because it's tricky to have these savers coming in because they need a long-term savings in order to prepare and fund their life projects, for instance, retirement, but also projects of all kinds. But also, on the other hand, the economy needs long-term fundings to fund SMEs, companies that are in transition, so on and so forth, and also anything related to technology innovation. So, indeed, the RIS should increase our retail investor database, but this shouldn't be at the expense of an industry that is not going to be able to play its role as for funding the economy. And this is going to be a true problem. That's why I would like to bounce back on value for money. As this was said many times, value for money is indeed value for money. And in French, relation link between quality and price, and that's the word quality. So you need for the retail investors not the same needs, not the same expectations in all your life. Also, there's the notion of performance, of taking risks. If you want to invest more on projects related to funding, real estate, energy, transition, innovation. All this is wide, it's very wide, but we're kind of summarizing the RIS to, with one word, cheapest. The cheapest product with low cost. So indeed, we need products. We need all kind of products with also cheap products. But the product should be diversified. It should remain diversified because this is a guarantee of market stabilization and also for the investors to have a wide range of products that will meet their needs. So indeed, we say yes to the RIS, but it will all depend on the way that things are implemented, on the RIS is implemented, and we should keep in mind that keeping an competitive industry is vital. Also, an offer that meets the needs and the expectations of our investors is key. Thank you very much. Would you like to bounce back, Mr. Gortsunian? Indeed, because the purpose of RIS is to increase the level of knowledge as for the financial literacy of our retail distributors. Would you like to add something? Yes, I would like to add several things, actually. Actually, I will start with the end, actually. Namely, this will be possible thanks to training. We have the framework, so logically, the objective should be achieved. I would like to bounce back on many things that were said. I agree with what was said, generally. The advice is very beneficial. For instance, in an SFDR environment context, the clients should voice what are his expectations, and the advisor should meet his or her needs and expectations. So, of course, we can say that the retail client can manage on his own. But my question is, do you really think that such a client, retail client, has a good command of PII, of such or such concepts, economic concepts, financial concepts, and notions? I don't think so. I think that's why these clients should be supported with our advice. And for instance, amongst the advice, there's a retrocession. And I think that it should be transparent, and I think it is the case.
If there's no inducement tomorrow, no incentive tomorrow, these counselors or other companies, they have people to pay, they have costs to cover, overheads, as Claire said. They have to propose something else, new services for their clients, or they have to find more clients. There, too, I believe the retail client is rather mature. And if he believes that the services proposed to him provide him with something, he'll pay for them. Otherwise, he won't. So in reality, if we look at the retail client closely, we have people with resources and time and who are ready to pay for added value. And so we talked about the average person. But the average person has other things to think about because we're in an inflationist period. And the energy costs are rising, so I'm not sure that the retail client wants to pay to have these services, even if he needs them. So the retail client will no longer be given advice. As our friend said, he will go all alone onto the internet, and he might invest in cryptocurrencies, and I'm not sure that's the best idea. So a snapshot of tomorrow, what will it be? Maybe we'll have retail clients will be served by big banking networks, or they'll be served by other companies, and maybe the follow-up will be provided by advisors in patrimony, and we can play a role here. But what about entrepreneurial management companies? So there's pressure on profit margins and costs. So the trend now is concentration. So there's a risk that this will continue. So tomorrow we should have big groups of funds managers, 15, 20 million euros, and they will be the counselors. So less competition, and that's never good. A center of gravity, which is moving from the management company to the distributor, because the distributor has clients. If the management company wants to become a player again, stronger, and he has to offer services. It's up to the management companies to do this. We have lots of things to do, and we have to do things to pull through. Mr. Martinez, would you like to add a word to conclude, Mr. Martinez? Maybe you'd like to add a word to conclude.
In the microphone, please.
Sorry. On financial literacy, I think that Tanguy said this morning that the pressure should be put on the member states, not on the real investment strategy, not in Brussels. The responsibility and the competence is on the member states, and so they're responsible to increase financial literacy. Second point on digitalization. If one of the principles of this strategy is to increase digitalization, why to ban inducement on non-advised sales? I don't represent the distribution, but is the end of the open architecture? What should be the future of platforms? I think that does not clearly match with this objective of this strategy. And third point, on the retrocessions, I want to put an example with the pharmaceutical industry. This industry provides a product that is a medicine, as the asset management provide a product which are funds. When the industry, the pharmaceutical industry, is going to sell these products, the medicine, go to the advisors, let's say the doctors, and they pay to the doctors directly or indirectly through the conference in exotic islands to increase the knowledge and the change of the doctors. That payments are called added value. When the asset management industry sell their products to the distributors, that payments are called retrocessions, and you are in a conflict of interest. What, as an asset management industry, has done very, very bad? Should we learn from the pharma industry in terms of marketing? That's my question.
Thank you. Mr. Marcus Mecklenburg, do you want to, I'm sure you think a lot about what has been said. Is there something that you want to add from what you have heard that draws your attention?
Yes, of course. I think one of the key elements of the whole project is, of course, the ban on inducements. We've heard a lot about the potential impact, but what I would like to add here at this moment is to inform you that we have done indeed interesting research on what actually happens as a result of a ban on inducements. Of course, we all know about the evaluations of the SCA, that there is a advice gap happening, but what would actually be the result from the goals, from the perspective of the goals of the Commission? And this is a very frustrating result. There are two elements which the Commission wants to achieve, which is better investment returns for the retail investments due to lower costs, and second, better retail participation. We have evaluated the results in the Netherlands and the UK, and it is very obvious that a ban on inducement falls short on both counts. First, better investment returns. We have checked a history starting from 1999 until last year, assessing the investment returns on a quarterly basis, and then compared it to a scenario without an inducement ban in both the Netherlands and the UK. The result was the improvement in investment return was 0.04 on a quarterly basis, which is statistically nothing. So the investors did not benefit from that. And the second element, broader participation, has dramatically increased in the UK and the Netherlands. There are much less investments in investment funds. We heard mostly than crypto asset because they are so fashionable right now. This just goes to show also on an empirical basis, this is not the right way. And I can only ask the decision makers to go away from this errant way. Thank you.
Merci. Est-ce que vous sentez qu'il y a...
Quick conclusion, Mr. Montillard. Maybe it's not necessary. Maybe I don't want to frustrate you. Maybe you want to say something. Yes, very short. A lot of things have been said. Indeed, there's a big discussion going on. It's about FM and on this ban on incentives. Once again, what's going to happen? It's practically already inevitable, even if there's intense lobbying. There are lots of amendments out there, but what is certain is that pressure on cost through different means. It's great, and it'll have a great impact. Here's what will happen. That's what's going to happen. But there are opportunities here. This is a changing market. There's support that's possible. There are going to be opportunities, but also failures, but still opportunities. So we have to measure these strategic challenges. There'll be winners and losers here. Mr. Mézières, we're moving towards standardization. There's less money. There more standardization is going to happen. Banks have been criticized for this. We're going to have networks of banks distributing products which are simple to everybody. Today, we have an industry which is relatively broad and distributed. We have some big players which are beginning to, as you said, to have up to 10, 15 billion. Then we have smaller ones. For the really small ones, it'll be tough for them to continue. And true, there are some existing solutions and networks, consolidations. But the more consolidation there is, there'll be less choice for clients, and there'll be more standardization. I know that you're keeping track of all these trends. I don't know if you'd like to say a word or two to conclude. Otherwise, I'd like to, wind up it, but not everything's been lost. We'll continue. We will continue to put forward our arguments in our industry. I believe that's in everybody's interest. Thank you. Our panelists deserve a round of applause. These have been very complex subjects.
An open window on the world. Following the sun at any time and any place. Illuminating innovation constantly. Offering solidly anchored solutions. Sharing expertise in partnership. Follow your ambitions. Discover cases. Cases, solid and innovative.